Margaret Thatcher.
Got me looking so crazy right now. The grand piano tragically fell atop Our Lady Macbeth.
You've been involved with Big Willie longer than I've been alive.
I beg your pardon? It should be called A Midsummer Night's Wet Dream.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Prestigious Actors, the podcast dedicated to the greatest people on earth, actors. In this episode, I sat down with a prestigious actor from the world of stage. She played Margaret Thatcher in the hit play Mrs Thatcher's Handbag, and she's also the creative brain behind the alternative theatre company Clean Shakespeare. That actor is, of course, Petunia Longbottom. Petunia, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Now, I've lots I'd like to ask you, but first let's jump straight into your role as the former Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, in the hit play Mrs Thatcher's Handbag, a portrayal of which bagged you a Tory Award.
A Tony Award.
As in Blair. That can't be right.
No, a Tony Award.
But you did also win a Tory Award.
Did I?
Yes, the chairman of the Conservatives at the time, Brandon Lewis, was quoted as saying, "You were so convincing, he wanted you to smother him in honey and pour a wheelbarrow of £50 notes on him." The point is, your portrayal of Mrs T was very well received by a certain kind of person. And by that person, I mean the sort that when cutting coke lines at university, the only object available to them is a framed picture of Mrs Thatcher.
I'm not sure what to say.
Here's a question for you. How does it feel to be held in such high regard by many Tories, particularly Brandon Lewis?
Well, I'm very flattered.
Tell us about Mrs Thatcher's Handbag.
It's an anthology drama series. Imagine a tape recorder placed inside Margaret Thatcher's handbag during her premiership.
If Margaret Thatcher played for a premiership team, who would she play for?
I'm sorry?
Which football team would she play for, hypothetically?
Well, I don't know much about football. I imagine she's more likely to be this VAR my husband keeps complaining about.
For some reason, I always thought that she'd play for Chelsea.
I don't know what that means.
Never mind. So the play, Mrs Thatcher's Handbag, it's secret moments from her life, portrayed on stage.
Yeah, that's right.
And it won awards, did it?
Yes, several.
I read that it also won an Oliver Award. Presumably that's named after Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden.
No, it's Olivier, after Laurence Olivier.
Who?
But Laurence Olivier, he was a prestigious actor from the mid-20th century.
I've never heard of him. I've heard of Oliver Dowden.
No, the award isn't named after Oliver Dowden.
What takes place in Mrs Thatcher's Handbag?
Well, there are a number of very different moments from her premiership that we reenact. Of course, the scenes written are based on likely conversations and happenings. The play covers conversations from the night Mrs Thatcher first became Prime Minister and the launch of the Falklands War, as well as her marriage to Dennis Thatcher.
What was your favourite moment to perform?
Oh, my favourite part to perform was the scene where she brutally demotes long-standing ally Geoffrey Howe.
Why was that your favourite part?
Well, as Margaret, I get to slap Geoffrey with a turbot.
And that really happened, did it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
When you played Margaret Thatcher, was there any kind of preparation that you did to help get you into character?
Well, each night I'd line up root vegetables and pretend they're members of the cabinet, then yell at them for their incompetence.
Well, you better get doing that just now, because we're very lucky here on Prestigious Actors, because Petunia has kindly agreed to perform some of her Mrs Thatcher here on the show. However, for contractual reasons, we can't take anything from the hit play Mrs Thatcher's Handbag. Instead, she's agreed to read Mrs Thatcher's very powerful address to the European Commission, which I found online. Petunia, or Margaret, action!
I look and stare so deep in your eyes. I touch on you more and more, every time. When you leave, I'm begging you not to go. I call your name 2 or 3 times in a row. Such a funny thing for me to try and explain. How I'm feeling, and my pride is the one to blame. Yes, because I still don't understand just how your love can do what no one else can. Jamie, are you sure this is Maggie Thatcher?
What? Yes, definitely.
Got me looking so crazy right now. Your love's got me looking so crazy right now. Got me looking so crazy right now. Your touch got me looking so crazy right now. Got me hoping you'll page me right now. Your kiss got me hoping you'll save me right now. Looking so crazy, your love's got me looking so crazy in love. Uh-oh, 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 oh, no, no. You say that this was her address to the European Commission?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Doesn't make any sense. It's not her style.
Don't be absurd. Of course it's Margaret Thatcher.
I'm sure I recognise it from somewhere. Where did you get it from?
I found it online before our interview, and I have to say, it was so believable. It was as if Margaret Thatcher rose from the dead just to close all the mines again.
Well, thank you.
We'll take a quick break with some Biz of Show news, and we'll be back with Petunia shortly. In this month's news, on production of a new Simon Pegg project, an illiterate set manager made a huge typo after he ordered a chair for a Mr. Simon Pegging. The Hot Fuzz and World's End star was reportedly furious, ordering the person responsible to be fired on the spot. In other news, after the success of the ABBA holograms, producers are reportedly working on a Leslie Grantham hologram. EastEnders execs have said if all goes well, a third return for Dirty Den could be on the cards. And finally, disgraced and incarcerated film producer Harvey Weinstein is having trouble walking after slipping on a bar of soap. Here on Prestigious Actors, we'd wish him well, but that would be insincere. That's it for our Biz of Show news in this episode. But in the meantime, you can keep up to date with the Biz of Show on any of our social media channels in the podcast episode description. You arrived into acting significantly later in life. As a much, much older actor, how did you manage to finally break into the industry?
Well, I was in my late 40s. I'm not sure that makes me a dinosaur.
No? No, sure. But what did you do before arriving in the Biz of Show?
Well, for many years I taught English language and literature in colleges. I was also heavily involved with the Amateur Dramatic Society, strictly behind the scenes, you see.
What happened to change that?
We just finished the dress rehearsal before our opening night of Macbeth, when a grand piano tragically fell atop Our Lady Macbeth. It's right in the middle of her soliloquy.
My God, that's awful. What happened?
No one has the faintest idea. All I know is the poor girl couldn't possibly continue. So, faced with the prospect of cancelling the show we'd all worked so hard towards, and with no understudy, then I took the script home with me that evening, and I learnt the blocking the same night. So the following evening, we pulled together, and we did put on rather a good show, all things considered.
Macbeth is quite a long play. How did you go about learning all of those lines?
Well, my technique is I read the lines several times, and then I do that again. And usually when it comes to saying them on stage, I just seem to remember them.
That is brilliant. Do you have a name for that?
Not yet.
Do other actors know about this technique?
I've heard that Judi Dench has a similar technique, actually.
Of course, we all know the importance of community theatre, but how did a local Amdram show lead you on to such great things?
Part of my role behind the scenes, I was also responsible for head of press, amongst other backstage roles. So anyway, I invited a number of theatre critics and casting agents to see the show.
And they came?
Oh, they did. Well, to be honest, they probably wouldn't have done if I hadn't told them it was an off-West End preview of Anything Goes, starring Felicity Kendall.
What happened when they arrived, presumably at a dusty old community centre with those awful plastic chairs, saw 5 minutes of the show and realised it wasn't Felicity Kendall? Surely they'd just get up and leave.
Well, they might have tried to, but not successfully.
What happened afterwards?
Well, some of the agents asked if I'd consider joining their books. So I never taught a lesson again in college. Awful students.
As a former English academic, as well as a talented performer, you've been involved with Big Willie longer than I've been alive.
I beg your pardon?
You've studied and performed an extensive amount of Shakespeare in your time.
I suppose so.
You recently launched your own theatre company dedicated to staging his work, but crucially with a twist for the modern discerning audience. Tell us about your company, Clean Shakespeare.
Yes, well, I think we can all agree that William Shakespeare was...
Big Willie.
His legacy of work is one of the most influential collections of literature in history. And as you graciously pointed out, I've spent most of my adult life celebrating his work. But there's only one issue I do hold to bear, and well, quite simply, it's the vulgarity of it all.
How do you mean?
Well, the works of William Shakespeare, they're littered with profanity, smut, and crude innuendo.
It is?
Well, of course it is. This is Shakespeare we're talking about.
No, I mean, I know he was prone to a little innuendo or the occasional double entendre, but all of his work?
Yes.
All of the characters, all of their lines, the plots, the subplots?
Everything, absolutely.
I mean, granted, his work does have a little bit of smut and vulgarity, but, you know, it's hardly Derry Girls or Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Respectfully, Jamie, I have to disagree with you. Name any of his plays and I'll explain.
Okay.
You do know some of his plays.
A Midsummer Night's Dream, that's what it is.
Oh, every time.
What?
That's the first play everyone opts for.
Is that a problem? I mean, I don't see how A Midsummer Night's Dream is at all inappropriate. We did it at school.
Well, yeah, that's just the problem. Oh, good gosh, where do I start? Well, let's start with the title. The title says it all. A Midsummer Night's Dream is about erotic dreams and fantasies. Sexual fantasies. There's indeed a word missing from the title. It should be called A Midsummer Night's Wet Dream, because that's what it is.
A Midsummer Night's Wet Dream?
Let me explain. There's the lovers, Hermia and Lysander, as well as Helena and Demetrius. At the beginning of the play, Lysander and Hermia love one another, and Helena loves Demetrius, who is aroused by Hermia. But where does this story lead us? Both sets of couples running off into the woods, where Lysander and Demetrius become obsessed with Helena after mysterious liquid is injected into their eyes. Then Lysander switches back to loving Hermia, with Demetrius and Helena becoming a couple. So, come on, Jamie. What does all this suggest that Shakespeare meant?
What?
The couples are clearly swingers.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, Jamie, please don't make me go into detail. The two couples, they head out into the forest and they swap partners, otherwise known as swinging.
I'm not sure that's really what happens. And even if it did, it doesn't make the entire play unsuitable.
Okay, well, what about the fairies?
What about them?
Oberon, the king of the fairies, spikes his wife Titania, smutty name, with an aphrodisiac. Titania sleeps with a mysterious ass who she's never laid eyes on. All the while, Puck, whose name, coincidentally rhymes with a certain promiscuous swear word, he all the while watches behind the trees and takes great pleasure as Titania and the ass, crudely named Nick Bottom, another rude name, they seduce each other. Would you say that's the suitable narrative for children?
Well, not when you put it like that. But it's more innocent than that. Take the Mechanicals, for instance. They're just a harmless bunch of imbeciles.
Don't get me started on the rude Mechanicals. My point is the play is littered with crass names, smut, and innuendo. It just isn't necessary.
What about Twelfth Night?
Oh, where should I start? You have the two drunken sirs who are always causing trouble. You have the Countess in mourning who falls for a woman, specifically dressed as a man to trick her. You have the Puritan steward who wears fishnet stockings to seduce her, but he's still in mourning. Oh, and then there's the letter.
Oh, right, the letter.
These be her C's, her U's, and her very T's. It's Shakespeare's way of saying C-U-N.
Not all Shakespeare is offensive or inappropriate.
I could go on.
Macbeth, then.
Under my battlements, Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here.
Measure for measure?
Well, that refers to the size of a lady's breasts.
As you like it?
That refers to sex.
Romeo and Juliet?
Graze on my lips, and if those hills be dry, stray, lover, where the pleasant fountains lie. God, it's practically a live-action teenage pornographic, Jamie.
Okay, you've certainly made your point. I'd be very interested to hear what our audience thinks. All 7 of them. Was Big Willie Shakespeare a sexually obsessed pervert, fixated on filthy smut and innuendo? Or is it entirely unnecessary to censor his work? Let us know in the comments, wherever you're watching or listening, or get involved on any of our social media channels. Petunia, when's your next clean Shakespeare production, and what's it of?
Oh, well, our next production is the company's version of Hamlet. Cleaned up, of course.
Without revealing too much, how have you cleaned it up exactly?
Well, before the first act, Hamlet is castrated.
Ouch.
And we make Ophelia a lesbian.
Who wouldn't want to watch a live staging of that? At the end of our last episode, we asked our listeners to send in their questions for Ask an Actor. Petunia, you have the honour of answering some of those questions sent in. So the first question, what's your favourite thing about Shakespeare? I didn't realise you knew him.
Of course I didn't know him. I'm not that old.
Really?
Jamie, he died in 1623. How old do you think I am?
Never mind. What do you like about him? His work, then, presumably.
He's the greatest writer in the English language.
Next question. As a talented stage actor, do you play any musical instruments?
I used to play the piano, but I got rid of it after it began to make an odd sound.
Okay, next question. Andrew Scott recently mentioned a member of the audience got his laptop out during a scene. What's the most off-putting thing to happen to you whilst performing on stage?
Oh, an audience member once conducted a job interview during a play I was in.
A job interview?
Yeah. We were performing Henry VIII, our clean version, when all of a sudden an impish-looking boy, likely a graduate, walked in late.
Late to the interview?
Late to the show. I think he was on time for the interview.
What was it?
I think it might have been finance.
Conducting an interview during a play? That must have been very off-putting. Did the impish lad get the job?
I think it's unlikely. After a particularly brutal line of questioning from the interviewer, the young man exited stage right towards the fire exit. The alarms went off and we had to skip right to the interval.
Gosh. Let that be a lesson to everyone that goes to watch theatre. Don't get your laptop out during Hamlet's soliloquy. And certainly, don't take the chance to conduct a job interview during Henry VIII. You should have had him beheaded. No? Okay. Have you ever considered trying to clean up or censor other artists?
Like who?
Ricky Gervais?
Well, I think that would be a waste of time.
Okay. I once portrayed a man who slipped down a flight of stairs in a work health and safety training video. How can I make the transition to becoming a proper actor?
Well, I would say to that person, join an amateur dramatic society or something of that kind. Hang around the cast, absorb as much as you can. And when it comes to opening night, pray to God a large blunt object falls on a leading cast member. From there, the rest is easy.
Thank you for sending in some excellent questions for Petunia there. If you have any other questions for Ask an Actor, put them in the comments or send them to us on social media. We'll try and ask them in our next episode. Now, Petunia, you're something of a first because you're the first actor that I know of that's played both the Iron Lady and Queen Elizabeth II.
No, I haven't played Queen Elizabeth II.
What about your work on The Crown?
I wasn't on The Crown.
I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Oh, I recently made my screen debut appearing as Imelda Staunton in the drama The Making of the Crown, series 5 to 6.
Wait, you're starring as Imelda Staunton?
That's right.
I don't follow.
Well, I play Imelda Staunton in the drama The Making of the Crown, series 5 to 6.
But why are you, or anyone for that matter, needed to play Imelda? Surely they can just get her in for the documentary.
Well, no, it's not a documentary. It's a very serious drama series.
A series?
Well, yes, it covers the making of series 5 and 6.
I mean, it begs the question, what happened in production to warrant making an entire drama series about the making of The Crown? And also, why just 5 and 6?
So this show focuses on some of the events during the making of the original show, such as Imelda grappling with the death of the Queen whilst filming.
What on earth was she doing there?
No, Jamie. No, the Queen passed away while Imelda was filming The Crown.
Imelda was mid-scene.
No, the Queen died separately in Balmoral.
But surely there wasn't enough drama behind the scenes to sustain an entire series for a drama.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Lots of other things happened during the making of those series. There was the incident with Claudia Harrison. She plays Anne. She was shouting expletives at a horse. And then there was the Dominic West incident with the sandwiches.
What incident?
He smashed up a buffet table with a folding chair.
But why didn't Imelda Staunton play herself?
She felt it was beneath her.
It's time for the final part of the show where I ask Petunia a set of quickfire questions. Petunia, are you all right with that?
Of course.
First question. As an actor, theatre, TV or film?
Theatre.
Tinseltown or London Town?
London, obviously.
Favourite work of Shakespeare?
Hamlet.
The Bard himself, artistic genius or sexually repressed pervert?
Excuse me?
Thoughts on Night at the Museum 2?
I haven't seen it.
Which actor do you aspire to?
Helen Mirren.
Most enjoyable actor you've worked with?
Oh, that's got to be Bailey.
Who?
The mongrel from A Dog's Journey, of course.
Most loathsome actor you've worked with?
No, Jamie. No.
Petunia, thank you. Finally, before you go, I'd like to ask you to nominate someone within the Biz of Show to our prestigious Actors Hall of Fame. Who would you like to nominate?
Helen Mirren.
Why Helen Mirren?
Well, I do like her new hairdo.
Petunia, thanks for joining us. Before you go, what can fans of prestigious actors expect to see you in next?
Well, actually, I'll be appearing as Mrs Thatcher in the top secret 7th series of The Crown in September this year. Gillian, she just wasn't up to the job, bless her.
I'll be certain to look out for that. Petunia, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jamie.
That was the prestigious actor Petunia Longbottom. That's it for this episode. If you have any comments on the show, please do send them in to us either on social media or to oddsodmedia@outlook.com. Thanks to all the actors for watching or listening, and to everyone else, break a leg.